Good morning and welcome to today's Dmrc meeting. Are there any apologies or substitutes?
Apologies from Councillor Gavin Nicholl, no substitute.
Thank you. And any declarations of interest or statements of transparency? Okay, I'm not seeing any at all. Okay, this meeting today will be carried out under the Council's remote protocol. It will be broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel and obviously it's being recorded. If remote attendees can use the electronic hand up, and those of us in the chamber will use our actual hands. So we're ready to go. We've got two cases this morning. The first one is item 3 on the agenda, Balbuchley House, Balbuchley Kirkton of Ochter House. And I think I would ask Mr McGuinness to give us an outline of what the issues are here. And this is clearly one that we have heard already before, and this was about conditions on a planning application. So I could maybe pass over to Mr.
Thanks, Convener. Members will remember that this application was in front of them and it was for removal of a condition, which committee agreed to do. However, there was consequential impacts on the removal of that condition for other conditions within the grant of consent or the potential grant of consent, which would mean that condition was not appropriate. What is in front of you today in the papers is a recommendation of how to address that abnormality from the previous division of committee, and I would refer you to your papers in front of you of the suggested routes through that, and I'm happy to answer any questions committee would have, as is the legal advisor.
Thanks, Mr McGuinness. I'm led to believe that there may be some new information has come into our hands from the applicant or the agent. Are you aware of that? Yes.
The applicant has submitted a letter after seeing the public papers for this morning's committee, and that has the applicant's view on the suggested condition and their opinion on its validity or not. This, if members chose to see this, would have to be considered as new information, and therefore the protocols would be in place as the convener is correct, is aware of that. If committee decided to accept that as new information, that would be provided. It would be up to committee to decide whether they wanted to review that information with the legal advisor and myself, or seek further information from development management on their views on the applicant's concerns about the proposed condition in the committee paper this morning. That would be the options open to. So, committee.
I mean, we've got two decisions. The first decision is, do we want to hear this additional information? And having heard it, do we want to pay any attention to the additional information, I guess? So what's the views of the committee members? Do we want to hear this additional information? I'm seeing nodding of head. Yes. Councillor Braze?
Yes, I would like to see the information, because without seeing the letter with the information, then we don't know whether it's relevant or not to us. Okay, Mr
McGuinness, I think we're universal on that one. We all would like to hear the additional information. We can then decide on it once we've heard it. Okay, can you go ahead and share it with us?
I would ask Karen to share it, if that's all right, convener, and then I can read through it. If members, it's probably better if members see it in front of them, so they can read it in their own leisure instead of listening to me reading it through it for them.
That'll be perfect. So you're going to circulate that? Yeah. Okay, so that's going to be emailed out to you now. So we'll obviously need a few minutes just to read that and digest it. I think the suggestion is we have a recess. So if we say we recess for about 5 minutes, so that would be in my watch about 11:57 or something like that. We'll have a recess until then. That'll give members a chance to digest the information that's going to be sent out.
20 minutes. 11:57 is 20 minutes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, 11:37. Okay, 5 minutes or something like that. So, okay, we'll recess for around about 5 minutes.
John, could we stop the live stream?
Okay, we're now back from the short recess, and members have had a chance to read the additional information which came from the applicant. Do you want to give us perhaps the planning view on this, Mr McGuinness, and just what are the implications if we accept the applicant's form of words rather than the council's form of words?
Happy to do that, convener. Planning consider this, and this is just my professional view on it, that there is an operational and locational justification which is linked to the business. In this case, the need for the accommodation is directly related to the needs of the business, not to the use of the land. The proposed and approved use would be staff accommodation for seasonal workers. That could be staff seasonally employed in any business anywhere. There would be no limitation and no control, and the conditions suggested by the applicant would be practically impossible to enforce. So what I would advise members is that reference to the specific business use is desirable for reasons of precision and enforceability, and is compatible with the tests in Planning Circular, if I remember, it is Planning Circular 4/1998 on the test of conditions in terms of precision and enforceability. So in terms of planning's view, the condition proposed in the committee paper is rational and can be reasonably applied. That would be my view, convener, and I hope that helps members.
Thanks, Mr McGuinness. So, I mean, the conditions relate to Nissan Christmas Trees Limited, which is the business that's operating there. So that would allow the current owners to sell that limited company to somebody else, and the conditions would still apply to the new owner or the new company, or the new people who are running the company, which is what you would want from a planning point of view. But if we remove the link to the company, then it could arguably be exploited by anybody else, and you're saying that wouldn't be acceptable. That's not correct?
That is correct, convener.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Can I just ask the committee members then what's their view? Would you prefer to stick with the council's proposed scheme of words, or what do you think about the applicant's proposals for a change? You have a view, maybe Councillor Dorn, if I could start with you. I'll say because you're the local member.
Yeah, no, thank you. I agree with the council's wording on this one. And in my view, the kind of discussion that's come up, to me it seems similar to kind of the permissions that we would give when we are doing a wind turbine or something like that. That there's conditions within that, and if it's not in use, that it would not be used. And the use in this case is specifically for this reason. That is what the whole application is based on. And so to me, it makes sense to link it to the company. Otherwise, I think then we're approving a kind of something that could be used on the land to house people indefinitely, because it's unenforceable, which is a different application to the one that we've been asked to address. So I would stick with the proposal from the council that's come on this one.
Okay, thank you for that. And I suppose probably I should have just clarified what we're talking about here is at the original meeting we struck down condition 2. That had implications on condition 3, and the council is proposing a form of words to sort of clear up that anomaly. Councillor Durno, do you have a view on this one?
Yeah, thanks. Similar to Councillor Doran, the actual structure that's been put up for the workers to reside in while they're working on the plant. If the plant was to stop and the new units were there indefinitely, then a farm shop or something else could be, or lodging or holiday let could be used if we didn't have that specific conditions in place, and that wasn't what this application has been put forward for. So I think we stick with what we've got. I do realise it's awkward for the applicant. It's a lot of money to be spending, but we have to go by the MP4 regulations about where we're putting buildings in the countryside, etc., and the reasons behind them. So I think I would go with what Councillor Doran's saying. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Durno and Councillor Brace.
Yes, I think I do much prefer our officers' suggestions, recommendations, and for all the reasons already given, and I think too that I don't see this as being a major imposition on the applicant compared to what they are asking for. You know, that this would come to arise at a time of considerable change for that business and for that land use, as far as I can see, and you know, having to come back to planning with another application won't be the biggest thing on their mind if they come to be making such dramatic changes to their business in the future. So I think I certainly would go with the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you for that. I think we're all agreed on that, because I certainly agree with the points made by Councillor Dorn and others that we should stick with the conditions suggested by the planning. I don't know, is there anything more to say? Are we all agreed on that? Anything more you need for the minute? No, we're okay with that. Okay, so we're effectively, condition 2 was removed at the previous meeting, and that has had a knock-on impact on condition 3, and we've now agreed with the new form of words from planning for condition 3, and we're all agreed there. So that resolves item 3, and we will move on to item 4, which, if you just give us a second, we will find. Okay, let's a long way up. So item 4, which is 1 Brokey Cottages, Moniki, and that is at page 219 in your papers. And if I could maybe start again by asking Mr McGuinness to outline the issues there. This is again one that we have heard before. We did a site visit several months ago, I think, and then we just determined that one, but there are some issues there. So over to Mr McGuinness.
Thanks, Convener. Committee will remember that on its meeting of the 19th of February 2024, it determined to uphold the application for review and grant planning permission subject conditions for 1 Brioches Cottage, as it was their view that the proposal complied with the relevant policies of National Planning Framework 4 and the Local Development Plan 2016, as it supported rural development, sustainable housing in the rural area, and would round off an existing building group, and therefore, in their view, met with the policy TC2 of the Angus Local Development Plan. However, it was not clear from the deliberations of committee why they considered the proposal to be in accordance with the development plan. As members are aware, the development plan comprises National Planning Framework 4, the Angus Local Development Plan 2016, and its associated supplementary planning guidance. Reference was made by committee that the application was in accordance with NPF4 Policy 17. However, it was unclear what parts of National Planning Framework 4 Policy 17 the committee was of the view that the application was in accordance with. Reference was also made by committee to material considerations. However, it was unclear why committee considered these to be material and the applicable weight to be attached to these material considerations in their decision. Therefore, convener and committee, clarification is required on what specific provisions of the development plan the proposal was determined to be in accordance with, the specific reasoning of why the material considerations were determined to be material, and the weight applied to the material considerations referenced. That's kind of me, convener, and I hope that gives members an overview of why we're back considering this application again. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Mr McGuinness. Are any questions from Mr McGuinness for any members? I'm seeing shaking of head. So just to kind of summarise where we are, remember, bearing in mind this was a non-determination case, so we didn't have a report of handling from officers. We did a site visit, and from memory, we weren't accompanied by a planning officer, which is the norm. So we weren't able to discuss issues with anyone there really on the planning side. So we were kind of slightly swimming in the dark, so to speak. Clearly, we've got, I think I personally was looking at it in reference to the development plan, the 2016 plan. I think the point Mr McGuinness is making is we've also got to consider the MPF4 policies. And clearly, I think what would be helpful perhaps might be that we get a report from planning which references this application against the various MPF4 policies, and then we reconvene and then we see how it stacks up against those and whether there are material considerations that we would need to apply. I don't know whether that would be sensible in your eyes, Mr McGuinness, and maybe get the committee's views on whether that's a good way forward. I see Councillor Durno's got her hand up. Maybe go to Councillor Durno first.
Yeah, thanks, convener. I had a look again this morning at the policies on MP4, and there is a few other policies within that that can be applied to the site, similar to the policy that we had before. But I'd be quite happy to see what the rest of the group think. But I have got a policy written down that I think sort of covers where I'm thinking. Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments from elected members? Would that proposal be acceptable to you, Mr McGuinness, and the planning service? So I suppose we'd be asking the development planning team to do that work and produce effectively a handling report which says how this application stacks up against MPF4. Councillor Brace.
Yes, thank you, convener. Well, we did do a site visit and we did consider this case very carefully, and we came to a conclusion as a committee. Now, I'm certainly not comfortable revisiting that decision today unless we're in a position to receive all that information today from officers that we would need to look at again. So I think I would like to go with probably a deferral for this until we can have all this.
Well, I think that's what I was proposing as a possible strategy. We don't have that information today. We have got a choice. We either, as Councillor Bray is suggesting, we stick with the decision we took, or alternatively we ask for additional information against MPF4 and go through that meticulously and say, well, it complies here, it complies here, it doesn't comply here, are there material considerations where it doesn't comply? I think that's the options we've got. Are you saying, Councillor Brace, you would prefer just to stick with the original decision?
Well, I'm quite happy with the original decision, but I would be quite happy for this to be deferred to and get our officers information that they think is relevant and go with that and take a decision after seeing what they come up with.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I'm afraid you can't intervene. That's not within our procedures. Can I ask, I see you've got your hand up, Councillor Dorn, maybe give us your views on this one.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, obviously what's needed is that justification. My concern is the amount of time that we've spent on this one already, and that it came to us without the handling report as well to assess that. So that's something I think we also need to take into consideration here. Like I said, I was happy. I think it was a unanimous decision that was made previously, when we discussed it. But it's just making sure we've got that legal justification in place relating to it. Thanks.
Mr. McGuinness, I see you've got your hand up again.
I just thought I would put it up, convener, just in case you wanted me to come in to answer the points you'd asked me previously. It's my strong professional advice to members that they actually ask development management for further information and the suitability of this application against a myriad of policies that were not considered by committee at their meeting. For example, and I am not trying to influence committee anywhere, National Planning Framework Policy 1 has to be considered against every single application. There was no recording of that, of the applicability of this proposal against that policy in the previous meeting. There are other policies. One would be if you were looking at this as a professional planning officer would do, and I'm granted that this is very difficult for members. I'm not trying to tell them how to do their job, but if you take the reservoir at Maniki and the proximity of the site, what we would do normally when we were assessing a case is we would look at the constraints that were near for a site. So for instance, we would look at the reservoir. We would then consult SEPA and roads on flooding to see if there was any implications. On SEPA's flood maps, the reservoir is at high likelihood of flooding, and the proximity to Brioche Cottage, as a professional planning officer would say to me, I need to check that out if it's a material consideration that we should be applying the policies on flooding in NPF4 and both. That would be one thing. You don't have that information in front of you. You don't know if there is any flooding implications, and you don't know if you need to consider the flooding policies as well in relation to that. So that's just one to try and practically show you that there is SEPA's map showing a high risk of flooding from reservoir, and they need to look at the flooding policies and consult with SEPA and roads, which normally we would do as a matter of fact when we were considering this. However, as this was a non-determination, those consultations would have been stopped in their track, awaiting the determination of that. There are other policies within NPF4. If you just look at policy 1, it tells you the other sub-policy tests that you would have to look at. So if you did not decide to ask for further information from development management, we would have to go through all of those policies today in NPF4. We'd have to go through all the policies, the adopted local plan, the applicable supplementary guidance, any material considerations, and we would have to sit and do that today as a collective committee if members chose to try and rectify this today instead of asking for further information. So it is my strong recommendation, and I'm sure the legal advisor shares my view in this, that you ask for further information from development management so that all the points in the committee report about competent decisions and decisions taken in accordance with the development plan are legally met. That would just be my view to convener, and I hope that is helpful to members.
Thanks very much, Mr McGuinness. So we've had a fairly strong view from you. I see Councillor Brace has got his hand up, and I did also want to just touch base with Councillor Durno just to get her views, but and we'll maybe let Mr McQueen give us his view from the wearing his legal hat, so to speak. So Councillor Brace to start with.
Yes, convener, we've just had strong professional advice that we should defer. I wonder, what are the implications if were we to ignore that advice? And just
do you want to give us a view, Mr McQueen, on that one?
It's certainly within the gift of the committee to proceed today. Convener's already mentioned that. Mr McGuinness has said what would be required would be sufficient reasons for that decision, so we could draft a competent and lawful decision notice. So from the legal perspective, I am stepping aside from the planning. I'm not a planner. But from the process and the legal perspective, it needs to be very clear what factors you're taking into account, which policies that you're applying, so we can put that in the decision notice to make it lawful and competent.
Thank you. Councillor Durno, do you want to sort of give us any thoughts initially from yourself?
Well, my thoughts on it, I was looking at MP4 policy for natural spaces, where the development proposals that affect a site designated are as a local national conservation site or landscape and will only be supported where, one, the development will not have significant adverse effects on the integrity of the area or the qualities of which has been identified, or number two, are clearly outweighed by social, environmental, economic benefits of at least local importance. Looking at the fact that the village will benefit from having another house in the vicinity and more residents in the area, and the actual plan itself will not really have an effect on the beyond, the actual country park. It doesn't have an effect on the country park where it is positioned. So that's really where I was looking at. myself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I guess come back to Mr McGuinness. I mean, I'm conscious of the comments, and I think I emphasise with them from Councillor Dornan about the delay. How long will it take us to draft this document, which we could then reconsider? Could you give us a wee bit of an estimate on that, Mr McGuinness?
If convener remembers correctly, in previous iterations when we've had a non-determination appeal, committee has asked for these comments to be provided within 4 weeks. I'm aware that there is a further DMRC likely to be scheduled the week beginning the 10th or the 17th of June. We could, if we agree to give 4 weeks to development management and that factors in, we could either reconvene and consider this in either the next DMRC meeting. So that's previously what we've agreed as a committee convener, that it would be 4 weeks that you would give development management in non-determination cases.
Thanks, Mr McGuinness. Mrs Forsyth was trying to attract my attention there.
Yes, sorry, convener. It was just I recognise what Mr McGuinness is saying, and obviously you want to give enough time to development management to provide that information. However, in terms of the regulations, it's a matter for the committee to determine. So you can specify the date by which you require that information. So today you could specify that date by which you require that information from the development management team, but we do have to provide a further 14 days after that for you to provide that to any other body which you would wish to do. Normally that would be the applicant.
Okay, so I guess this is in our hands essentially, so we could request this information from the development management team within 14 days. And given the amount of delay on this particular application, I think that's not unreasonable. We have delayed the applicant by quite a considerable amount of time. So are we agreed that a 14-day target is reasonable? Councillor Brace?
I certainly wouldn't want it any longer than 14 days because the applicant has been subjected to really quite unnecessary delay, perhaps, not through any fault of his own, and so 14 days would be suitable for me. Does that mean, convener, that we will make a decision on this then on the 17th of June?
I think that would be certainly possible, yes. If we can get the notice, we get the information from development management, and we then have the 14-day window, that's 28 days, and we're on the 10th today of May, so yes, that should be doable, I would think.
It said 17th of June, but I don't see one scheduled at the moment.
There's no one scheduled.
Sorry, if I could just come in. So in terms of, I would say we could potentially issue that written procedure notice for that information on Monday. So that would be a 14-day period for development management to provide us with a statement. Thereafter, we will require to give a further 14 days to the applicant to be able to respond to that. And then we will collate that response and present that in a report. So you are looking at potentially week commencing the 17th of June for any further consideration.
So we should be able to get this wrapped up by the end of June, which would be effectively the council recess. So I think that's the right decision. We've had pretty strong professional advice from Mr McGuinness. I think this is one application that, you know, we've had this issue when MPF4 came in, that we were kind of moving over to that, and clearly a thorough examination of this one against the MPF4 policies would certainly be helpful, and I would be comfortable if we do that. So are we all agreed that that's a reasonable course of action? Okay.
Agreed.
Okay. I think, is that clear for we've got everything you need for the minute there? Okay. That's great. Okay. Well, thanks very much for your time today. We will reconvene on this one at some point in June, and I wish you a good rest of the day. Enjoy the sunshine.
John, can we stop?